Hi everyone, it's Nisha, and I am back today with an amazing guest. I have a director here, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Angelo Visser, and I am the writer, director, and editor of Every Living, Breathing Moment.
Amazing. I'm excited to have you today. I just want to start with the title of this short film, Every Living, Breathing Moment. How did you come up with that name? Because I think it's amazing.
That's a great question. It's funny because sometimes titles really stick right off when you know exactly when they're gonna work. And this one didn't. I didn't exactly know, and there was a lot of conversations I had with the cinematographer who was my main kind of like second in command when talking about story. And he, like rightfully so, was wondering maybe if it might be like a little bit broad because he really liked the story and he really liked what it was saying, but he was like talking about everything, could be like yeah, like it might not be saying much when it sounds like it's trying to say everything. But I thought on it for months and months and months, and I really, really liked it because the whole reason why I told this story was about the scene where I mean if you've seen it, but it's the scene where the main character kind of gets gets caught with like the with like he's taking a photo and she and like the love interest sees him, and it's this moment of right then the story could have changed. If he made one other decision, the story would have gone on a whole nother path. So I knew if nobody else watched the rest of the movie and only that scene, it's about that moment alone. So I really, really wanted to just focus on that moment can be life changing, and it could define this character's life. So, and then with the breathing part, I think that it was just because I knew a lot of it was not gonna have dialogue, so I wanted the film to breathe in itself with all the visuals and with the dance sequences and stuff. So I don't know, but it definitely was something I had to settle into, like with like having this like really wordy kind of title. People try to like tell me it, and sometimes they like get it like rightfully so. It's kind of confusing. But yeah, I wanted to capture that one specific like defining moment in the whole story for sure.
That's amazing. I love that. I know for myself too, like whenever I'm like writing or anything like that, I usually come up with like a scene and then I get the title from there, so I can relate to you on
Yeah.
that part. Um, I wanted to know, so this is centered around, a man who's kind of in this like corporate job, I would say. Um, how did you like come up with the idea to center it around this kind of like mundane aspect of his life? And how did you like silently communicate that?
That is a great question. I think that the idea for the mundane life came with a contrast between what's going on in his head, because so much of the movie takes on, or takes like the setting is in his head, like all these dance sequences, and you see it kind of compared to this like kind of like flamenco inspired dance. So I really wanted it to kind of be ironic in that what's going on in his head is so different from how he's perceived in the world. So, for instance, like I would go to the opening number when answering this question because you see this dancer and like elegantly like buttoning his shirt and like doing like stuff like this when really all he's doing is like putting on a watch and he's wearing this like really boring shirt and pants, and he's in this vibrant city, but he's just this like one note. And I think that that's something that the main character doesn't realize in like the first half or two-thirds of the movie. He doesn't realize that his life is going down this slope. So I was like, because I knew we were going to be in his head so much, I was like, I want to make his head as vibrant as we can. And I want to make it have fireworks and people watch it and the lighting is beautiful and you can tell you're in a dream. And then when it's real life, it just, you can hear the coffee maker in the room. And you, like, we experimented too in the score. There's a lot of clock ticking you hear, or it took a few times, but like I wanted this to be, the contrast to be as far apart of those two things as I possibly could. Um, and there's films too, like 500 Days of Summer is like one movie that I absolutely love, and it's kind of like it's kind of sort like I would almost compare the two like Office kind of styles between the two because he kind of also experienced a lot of stuff in his head and has this total like flip of a world. So yeah, I just wanted to have that contrast.
Yeah, I love that. And I know, I think of why a lot of people have loved the short film so far is because I think people also relate to it, like on a daily basis. Like when you're just doing the simplest of tasks, it can remind you of like films or other things that, are more engaging or better in
Yeah, yeah,
your
yeah.
mind. So I love that.
No,
Um,
totally. Yeah.
how did you come up with the idea of, bringing photography into play and, pun intended, what made it the right lens to kind of tell this story?
Yeah. That was such a decision early on. It's funny you say that because I found this sheet of paper that I had like right on my desk over here, and it was all these notes that I would scribble usually like, right before I go to sleep, and I would wake up and sometimes they wouldn't make sense or sometimes I would be like, why on earth would I do that? But originally, and I don't know why I was going down this path. Originally he was drawing, and originally he was like a street artist more like pen to paper, and he would sketch. And then and there was this yeah like I guess it was a similar thing. I don't know how much different the story was, but saw that it said in like the potential props list that he was gonna need like not an easel but like a sketchbook. Um, and I think that the photography thing just felt a little bit more normal because like I've gotten really into film photography in the last few years, and I think that like that's something that is much more common to do and much more like it doesn't like it wouldn't draw as much attention I think if you're doing that on like a subway and it's quicker rather than like drawing someone as like really like I always like his character, it's kind of like a flaw, it's kind of like this weird kind of creepy element. Not that I do that in like the city. It's like it was his character does that. But I feel like drawing someone is more intense because it's like it requires more. But yeah, so I think that film just felt more like his lane because it's something just quicker. And you could take a photo of a building, you could take a photo of, like someone playing a saxophone or something. Um, and yeah, we had a lot of conversations too with like how the camera was gonna be brought up and like making sure that it's out of a like endearing standpoint and not a creeper standpoint. But which I think is like a good flaw in his character because like he needs to move past that. Like it's not an ideal place to be stuck behind your camera every time you see something cool, you know?
Yeah, of course. I love that. That's funny. Um, Kind of talking more about like how you built his character. When I was watching it, kind of observing, he's this quiet, kind of like introspective person. How did you go about kind of building his inner world for the audience to see?
That is a great question. Well, I think that it started with the dance sequences on the stage, and I knew that it was kind of gonna get broken up in acts because the first thing we see is just the male we call it flamenco dance, but it's definitely just like flamenco inspired. But we see the male dancer come out, and then we realize it's a parallel, and then we see the next time we see them we see the female dancer, and then we start to realize that they're playing in the world, and then by the end like there's like a brief moment when you see them like dancing together. So I kind of knew that his inner world was going to be broken up with that show, and that was one of like the biggest inspirations for the whole movie. Like it was crazy. But with his inner world, I think that just naturally kind of came about because I really knew early on that I wanted it to be from his perspective, and it was a really really good note that I got on the script when I showed it to the first person I ever showed it to. Like originally we were gonna go into her life too, which is really cool. Like there was times when I wish she would have had like even more, but the note was like it's a short film and really should be from one perspective, so it's not confusing. So I knew like we're gonna have these dance sequences, and then I like when I came up with like the intro sequence, it's all of a sudden like now we're in his head and it feels weird to only go there once. But it kind of just naturally came about. There was even one more sequence where he wakes up and like dances down the hallway, and we kind of meet all these like people from his dreams. And I loved it so much, but it was like I looking back, it was way too much, and I actually like physically filmed it too. So that was bad because like I like wrote it and then was filming it and was editing it. So like there's no way I'm gonna be able to cut it. But eventually, like I realized it was way too much. So I loved going into his head like as much as I could, and I think that just kind of naturally came about once I knew the dance was gonna be separating it. And yeah, so it made it so much easier to have it in his head than like have it be dialogue because it feels so unnatural for him to be like at his lowest moment to just be like talking like his friend or something and be like I'm not feeling good about this. But when that happens, it's like this dance that they do in his apartment, and you can tell he's in such despair. So I would rather communicate that visually, I think.
Yeah, of course. I think that's very interesting because, like when I was watching it, I kind of found that his quietness was more so also because of his job and it was kind of suppressing his emotion,
Mm.
especially then when you saw that contrast with, this mystery girl. He became like more vibrant and more open. So
Yeah, yeah.
I thought that was like very interesting.
Yeah,
Talking about the mystery girl, um, she how did you shape her character? Because, she is on this train and then, appears in his dreams. Um, And then there's these kind of like vivid sequences. So how did you go about kind of building her as well?
Yeah. One of my favorite things about the story as a whole was that it is obviously a romance and it's a drama shaped in that, but what matters even more to me is the ending with the coworker, because we actually know a little bit more about the coworker, whereas the mystery girl character, we don't hardly know anything about her, and it's purely an interaction like anybody could have one, the way that they interact is just him like noticing her. It's the simplest interactions. So the ending that's after, like, the last thing we actually see is what like really matters in my head, because it's his coworker is the only person that actually knows about his hobby, so he kind of is like throwing him a line and being like, you need to get out of here too. So I kind of wanted to capitalize on it, the romance actually not even being the main gas pedal of the story. And I know that sounds ironic because it's obviously like super romantic, but being that the payoff isn't the romantic payoff. So I did want to keep it in a way where they might not even be compatible romantically, or like theoretically, like, one of them might not even speak English or something. Like they have never spoken. There was one time they made eye contact, and she like laughed it off. So I really wanted to keep it being that he thinks he knows about her and her schedule and what train she's going on and what people she interacts with, but really it's this one chance that he got to not be awkward, and she could have been compatible, but she could have not, and then he passed that up because he was overthinking and everything. So I really wanted to keep her ambiguous and keep her character just being this person that he can only have like a fantasy of, due to his like flaw of not being able to just talk to her, if that kind of makes sense. Because if we delved into her character, then I think that it would have to just be a longer story, and that like then we'd have opinions on if they are compatible or not. But the reason that she's portrayed in this just like only good things is because he doesn't actually know much about her at all, because it takes that step to like talk to her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that, especially to your point about if we kind of learn more about her, it'd be a longer story. I think it would definitely take away from like the strength and importance of those dance sequences and
Hmm.
other elements that you brought into it. So I like that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, talking a little bit more about kind of the themes and messages that the short film did bring, it kind of explores, isolation, routine, the sense of longing. What core, like, emotional or like philosophical message did you want to kind of convey in this short film?
that's also a great question. These are such good questions. Um, One of the biggest inspirations for it was I started writing it at the beginning of my senior year in high school, and when I was really in the trenches writing it was when I was about midway through. It was like winter, and so ironically, the story started out as a much more feeling like a coming of age story, and it took place with high schoolers, and like it was so different. Like, I still have the first draft. I don't even know if I've ever gone back and read it, but like I pitched it to my sister, but to me the story feels very similar, but it's not on a train. There's nothing going on like that. But the thing that stuck was this through line of knowing that I am going to be embarking from high school and meeting so many people and having the chance to so many connections, especially like you hear about all these film people that meet their people, especially in like first year of college. So whatever. But I was just like friends too. I was like, I have no idea who I'm gonna be meeting. And on the same time, so many people I'm gonna be saying goodbye to, and saying goodbye to my family, and like going to college like states away. So there was this weird feeling of wanting more time with these people that I was saying goodbye to, and knowing that like your impressions are so good too on like on the people that you're meeting. So there's all these little moments like left and right that are that either it's like this could be the last time I see this person, or the first time you see this person. Like literally anything can happen on this first interaction, and it's kind of like, obviously everybody's so awesome in college. It's not like you have to like really be on at the first conversation, but to me it was that same feeling that is portrayed in the movie of, you could, like, option A, overthink all these interactions and be like, okay, well, I'm already gonna be missing this person, let me just like say goodbye now, and like so things aren't worse. Or you could try to just be as present as you could be. So it's still something I'm still trying to wrap my head around for sure, but you still could be in the moment and actually enjoying the time that you have with these people, because it's so finite. Um, so I think that the philosophical message, I guess I would say, is that I probably won't be able to articulate it best, like off the dome right now. But I think that it would just be to, as much as you can, and it's hard when you're thinking about this in the moment, but as much as you can to not have thoughts about the future overtake whatever it is you're happening, whatever is happening, because the regret of that loss is going to feel so much more painful than whatever could happen in the moment. At least just from my experience. Like longing is going to be so much more painful, and there's not really a distinct end to it, rather than something that could happen, especially in like a romantic sense too, like right there when you're there with somebody, like the pain of rejection, obviously.
Yeah, of course. And I think we also see that through, towards the end of the short film when he's the main character sitting on the train with this older gentleman, and he has this conversation, and it's kind of like an alarm to him. It's like, wait,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
should probably, be in the moment now when he hasn't really, I don't think, like had exact thoughts about the future, but he's definitely, his head is somewhere else.
Yes.
So yeah, I really liked. One of my favorite parts of the film was that conversation, because I find it, like, so in today's reality, I know a bunch of people can relate to this, that everyone is always caught up in the future. We're always trying to, like, most people, I would say, are trying to, figure out what they're going to be doing next, because there's so many things going on at once in the world right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one of my favorite parts. So I love that you bring up that message. Um,
Oh, thank you so
you
much.
know,
Mine too. I love that shot so much with the train starting to move for the first time, and yeah, our actor was so good. Colton is so good. You could read his emotions so well. It was amazing.
Yeah, of course. You know, Also, the protagonist leaves his job, at the end. He gives, the camera over to his coworker. What does this act represent in the larger context of the story?
I think what comes to my head first is that because you were saying that it's something that's relatable. The story is something that, like you said, you can relate to and people can, because it's all about the moments that people are having. So I, like, obviously I'm so, like, so young and have not been able to experience like nearly enough to have the ending of this be some sort of resolution or some sort to his fear. And I very well think that this could probably happen to him again. So kind of like keeping that what's the word, naivety, kind of keeping that naivety I have on the situation, and being that there's like a glimpse of hope for his coworker, but there's not actually, like, he could all he does is glance to the side. He could very well pass up that opportunity, not even understand what the note quite means. Or yeah, and also, like, I always like it too, because it's kind of funny, like, if you think of what that actually means. Like, I don't think the main character is saying, like, go take photos with people and then learn that that's not the move. It's like kind of an imperfect kind of way that he sends him off, which I really like about it, because I think it also just shows what I was saying before too, about how, like, I still have so much to learn about this kind of idea. But yeah, I think that him giving him that is kind of just like, it's like, just try something different, because he sees this coworker just in the same circle every single day, and it's literally shown in that circle of pans when we see our main character getting more and more kind of disheveled. But yeah, I like to think of it just, he's like casting a line or something, just to be like, just try not beating the same drum that you have for so long, because he tried it and he messed up. But like, our main character tried it, our main character messed up, but he found some way out of it. Um, and yeah, like, obviously, I've never worked in like a corporate environment, so it was very much portrayed from what I imagine, and kind of like nothing particularly like special. But I think that it could be like easily this kind of like metaphor almost for what I imagined a more just like like more a more dull, like, feeling of kind of loss. Like what I was saying before, how, like, if you just had to pass up an opportunity, you just kind of sit in that window of regret and everything. It's kind of just a visual representation of that, like sitting in this kind of idle state, if that makes sense. So that's why I just wanted him to just give him a little lifeline out of that office.
Yeah, of course. I definitely relate to the part where you said, try something different, because that's right when I saw him give the camera, he was kind of taken aback, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of him saying, like, hey, maybe you can go and try and break this circle that you're in, even though we don't
Yeah.
even know like anything about his life or anything like that. So I love that.
Yeah, and the fact
Um,
that it's kind of unopened too, like I love, because like the romance story kind of like wraps up, and like he steps off the train, but I didn't even want it to be like obvious. If like they don't even talk, nothing happens, and so it's kind of in the same vein that at the end when he passes off the camera, it's also kind of just this like it's just kind of the film kind of breathes for a second, and then you just have like your interpretations left to it, rather than just like wrapping up the romance and then the story ending.
right, of course. Talking a little bit more about, like the visual and stylistic choices. Um, in terms of like lighting and framing and color, there's a lot of warm tones in this film, contrasted with a lot of, like darker, cool tones. Especially, I think it was the dance scene in the kitchen, which is one of the shots that I really loved. Um, there was this like warm, bright light, and then she like disappears into the dark. So I wanted to know like how you came like up with that, like the lighting, and like how did you figure out that this was going to reflect, like the protagonist's like internal state.
Yeah. Our cinematographer is really keen on his lighting choices, and we were so run and gun. It was usually me, him, and then my one friend. We were all kind of doing different like jobs, and then like our even our main actor sometimes would be like helping us move gear and then set things up. But it was just like we found a way to work it. But in that apartment dance scene, that's like my and the cinematographer and the composer's favorite scene in the whole movie. Like I love that clip so much. And I remember the first time like, we went home that night, and our cinematographer's name is Elijah. Elijah colored it, and we watched it. I watched it with my parents, and I was like losing my mind. I was like, this is crazy. Because it all he did was he took this one light that he has as a magnet, and he like put it on top of the oven. There's like a fan above the oven, and just angled it down, and you can totally see the light. It's in the thing, but it's kind of like blurred, and it's kind of like a bloom. Um, and then we did that take a few times, and then on the last take of it, my friend that was on the set, he moved the candle over to like the island in between where they were gonna be like over it, if that makes sense. Like it was on the other side of the island, so it was like that for one take. I don't even know if I knew that he did that in the moment. It was crazy because we had like 45 minutes left in the space, and we were like, let's just get the shot. I like choreographed the thing there, and we got it, and it worked. And something magical happened where literally, like you said, you can watch the light just evaporate in the scene, and then I get chills every time when she just disappears into the abyss. And then he turns, and all you see, I'm literally just retelling the scene, but I love it so much because it's my favorite thing in the whole movie. It's awesome. And yeah, but most of it was our like the the run and gun kind of setup, and our cinematographer just knowing that he can trust his like expertise in the coloring afterwards, rather than spending so long on setups and everything. Because that was a lot of, like, on the train we couldn't really manage a lot of external lighting. It was the whole sides and top are windows and everything, and we were filming at like 1 p.m. the 3 times that we did. So but there would be times we'd put some lights up like on the sides or like above. But yeah, that I remember the first time I saw the stills, and it was the contrast between the dreams and the train, and it was this total like warm versus this like blue and green. The train felt so industrial, which was so great. But but yeah, like most of what we did, we prioritized giving time to actually have it filmed and not setting up crazy external lighting, so that then it could be changed in post. Because yeah, Elijah, our cinematographer, is so good in color in post, and can literally make things look amazing. And so yeah, it was faith in him, and I don't know, his natural skill when we were just running gun on the streets of Seattle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. There were a lot of great shots in this short film. Would you say that was your favorite one, or did you have like a different one? Because I know for me, I think also one of my favorite shots was kind of the match cut that you guys did,
Yeah, yeah.
with Colton. I love a good match cut. So what was kind of like your favorite shot?
I do think my favorite shot is that apartment sequence, because it's so good, and that's also kind of like partially because the story of it, like getting to there and knowing it was gonna happen, and that's something that's so easy could have been cut, because in the script, like It doesn't literally need to happen to progress the story, but I was like, this is literally what we were saying before, the representation of his loss. Like his needs, like for me, it needs to be there, I think. But yeah, so that one is awesome, and his performance is amazing. But yeah, the match cut sequence is also very fun because every location we get to, we'd be about to film, we'd be like, wait, let's get the match cut, and Colton like had that kind of like tilted expression that he would have. But I'm trying to think. So well, another one of my favorite shots is in the intro walking sequence, and he's walking through, and there's this building in Seattle right outside of the I think it's just like the Seattle Art Museum, the SAM, and there's this big like hammering man statue, and and I loved it because I remember the moment I was like, oh my gosh, this needs to happen because Colton's this like little, we're so far away from him, and he just like walks through, but there's this dude like literally it's this big statue like hammering, and I was like, this is brilliant because the I mean I'm not calling myself brilliant or whatever, but I was like this works so well because the dancer's so like elegant, but Colton is literally, or Colton's character, we named him Tom. Tom is usually what we refer to him as, but whatever. Colton was literally just walking through the shadow of this big corporate worker, like as if to just be following all of the instructions. And yeah, there was a funny story too. I remember I was yelling at him from across the street. I was like, "I need your arms more flamenco dancery," because like I really wanted to like sway in his arms. Then he did it, and it was my bad. It was like too much, and I was like, "Wait, no, like less." And he was like, "What do you mean?" But yeah, like that one was really fun. And yeah, the one you were talking about with the train, because the train doesn't move the whole movie, partially because it was expensive to rent like the main train. But also it ended up working because it starts to move and everything's kind of clicking for him, and it's the first time that we see it. It just feels like the world's kind of closing in on him. So yeah, I feel like I could just talk so much more about these. All the stuff on the stage too is so fun because it was just like messing around with this abyss that we had, and like what works, and how can we like hide like dancers in the light and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know, especially mentioning kind of like the train. It's always such a cool element because we've seen so many movies, with trains and whatnot, and so much can happen, on a train and off a train. So I love that element of it as well. I was going to ask you, kind of like balancing the scenes between like in present time versus like what's going on inside of his head. How did you like figure out like the balance between that and like doing that without kind of like disrupting the tone or pace of the story?
Hmm. That's a very good question. It was kind of a puzzle in post production actually because yeah, it was weird. We had the flamenco, which we kind of realized is actually happening, and then reality, which obviously is, and then this like true dream state that's not actually happening, and we had to balance this. And like in short films, I feel like a lot of people watching them are kind of just watching them willy-nilly. So I just keeping in mind, some of the people watching them might not be fully game to be like, let me figure out what's actually happening. Whereas like when you go like a theater and a movie, you're paying to be there, and so we filmed we filmed like everything that was in the script, even that one scene that got cut in the hallway and all these match cuts, and yeah, an idea from our cinematographer once was like cut that whole middle montage of him changing himself for her and him looking for her and just have it be just the match cuts. And then it was really brief, and we tried that. And then one time, when I first met up with the composer in like our first studio session at his, I like showed him the film and stuff. We watched it over like a call like this. It was crazy. But the first time we were like there in his studio, we kind of realized that we had this weird setup of stuff in the middle, and it's all good, but it needed to be rearranged. And so his name is Grant. Grant actually gets like an assistant editor credit on the movie. It's like somewhere in the credits because we sat and we were like, we can't even work on music yet. We need to figure out what's going on in the middle. So yeah, like I like there's like a plethora of random things that go on, and Grant weeded it all in one song. It's brilliant. Like starts so like giddy and he thinks everything's okay, but he's realizing changing himself for her is not what he needs to do. And then it gets a little more solemn because he can't find her, and then it just hits that match cut. And it's the same song, but it's like three shifts. So I was gonna wait. What was your question? You were saying
The balance kind of between those scenes versus like the ones in real time.
yes, okay, yes. So a lot of what we did was we sat and we just puzzled this together, and it was weird because the film was able to be like, at one point he was like, what if we put that apartment dance early? and then we put the kind of ice cream scene later because they're both dreams, but and so it was weird. We were able to fully switch it around and have the film still be chronological and kind of make sense. And I've never had that experience for a film. Like we were fully able to be like, let's just cut this scene out and watch the thing, and then we do it, and it would work, but it would feel weird. Um, so yeah, so the balance like certainly was like having there's like two or three big dialogue sequences of the film, and they're pretty spread out. And I say those kind of bring things back narratively, um, rather than having it just be this massive montage of crazy stuff going on in his head. Because like we intro with montage, and then he sits and has a conversation with his coworker. It gets a little crazier, and then he's with his coworker, and then at the end we have that scene with the wise man on the train. But it did involve like finding the balance did involve cutting a little bit. There was yeah, that hallway bit got cut. And then yeah, there was a few times when he like I wanted to show that he's evolving, so I had him interacting with people on the train. Like he was like, "Have you seen this person before?" And then he kind of like evolved and started chatting with people. But it felt really weird. It was like all of a sudden these weird short bits, and you were like, "Who are these people? Who's he talking to?" So it kind of came with refining down like a little bit of yeah, we cut down a little bit of those were actually reality, and then we cut down a little bit of the dream. But yeah, I think it was mainly separating the dreams, and yeah, it kind of goes flamenco dream and then reality, and then we go back to the flamenco show to kind of it like so I started this getting really confusing, but it kind of piggybacks off of the reality because the reality happens and the flamenco dancers represent that, and then it goes into the dream, and then it kind of is like a cycle, I guess, is what I'm realizing right now for the first time. I think that we kind of found this natural like wheel that it kept on going, but we had to cut some stuff out for sure.
Yeah, of course. I know. Definitely with those kind of like bits and pieces, kind of like how you just mentioned, like a cycle. It obviously, brought some sort of progression, which I really loved. And the pacing of it was amazing. So I'm glad that you're able to
Oh, thank
talk
you.
about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think also one of the biggest wonders is always like, what do directors and everyone else in the editing team cut from like films and stuff like that? So I'm glad I get to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
We talked about a lot of great stuff from the film. I wanted to ask, what was one or like, some of the biggest like creative or technical challenges that you did have while making the film? I mean, you'd kind of touch on right now like the editing aspect of it, but was there like anything specific that comes to mind?
In like a very technical and like literal challenge, one of the things that comes to mind was that I didn't even realize this until after, but we filmed it in the hottest week of Seattle last summer, and we were filming on the train and one of the days, and we would only have it for 2 hours at a time. But we were on the day where then they gave us the moving train for 1 hour. So we had 1 hour to shoot the end scene with like with the wise man. And it was crazy because we had to shut the doors and turn off the air conditioning for the sound because all of a sudden we started filming and there was this Peruvian celebration going on in Seattle Center because there's the monorail is right next to the base of the Space Needle. So it was wild because as soon as we started recording, you hear this music and the music's awesome. Like it like there's this really quiet kind of sunken in scene. So that was a really weird challenge that we had to film it and we just got as much coverage as we could. But like it was brutal. I mean, in between takes, we'd open the doors and have everybody leave the trains while I was like, okay, how many more of these takes or angles can I like really request of these people versus like giving them a break because like obviously everybody needs like time and stuff. So that was difficult, but luckily it was only an hour and it flew by, which was crazy because we shot the scene and we left and that was maybe the time the most that I was like, I don't know if we have this. I don't know if we have this like actually to be cut together. And then yeah, I edited it, so I was able to kind of use like noise reduction and stuff to get the Peruvian stuff out. We didn't have to use any ADR or anything, which is really nice because that stuff just scares me so much. And people can make it good, but I don't know if at this scale if we could. But so that was tricky. And then another thing was originally I was like, we should get actual flamenco dancers to do this. So I reached out to all these people and I got a lot of calls back and they were like, it's gonna be it was a lot of money. It was way over the budget that I had. We had a very small budget obviously, but it was like set aside for the flamenco. And so like 2 or 3 weeks before, I reached out to two of my friends who are dancers. And one of them's a hip hop dancer, one of them just danced like I'm in musical theater and he like danced in like a show with me. And I was like, the flamenco is inspired from the show that I went to. That's a whole nother story I could get into. But I had this like a few videos on my phone, and I like showed it to them, and we like made this dance up from this like pre-recorded music I found on Spotify. And so that was so weird, like trusting that that was gonna work, and having it be like we didn't have a choreographer or anything, and having people trust that like these people are actually dancing. It's not just like people messing around. So I've been being taken with like that respect, but also like it's good that we didn't end up getting dancers because they were gonna come with like a routine and do it for like an hour and then leave. But I needed the dancers to do like weird stuff, like just like single mode moves or whatever. I didn't need like people that were gonna do like a whole thing, and because it was only gonna be bits and pieces. So that was weird though, and I've obviously never like I've always wanted to incorporate dance in a film, and I want to keep doing it, but that was like a weird hurdle to kind of get over, and kind of incorporating the flamenco into the whole story and having it make sense, I think was one of the biggest hurdles. Because and like even the first thing I reached out to Grant, our composer, I was like, "Can you do some flamenco?" He was like, "We're gonna figure it out," and I was like, "All right, cool," because we obviously don't want to use like big band music over that. But yeah, trying to bring the flamenco into the narrative story was certainly tricky and a hurdle.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, obviously, whenever you're on a film set, I'm pretty sure that there's, like you said with the subway, there's always those small things that you encounter. I'm sure if I was doing that, it would bring me a lot of anxiety just trying
Yeah,
to time that and figure that all out. So props to you on that.
yeah,
Um,
thank
you
you.
kind of mentioned that, yeah, of course, that the crew on this short film was very small. I mean, you did three elements of the film, writing, directing, editing. So how long did this process take from like start to finish?
I started writing it at the end of 2023. Like it was very end, like December. And then we filmed it in July of 24. And then it just released May 9th. So, but like a year and a half about.
Yeah, that's great. Um, and that's I feel like that's a pretty quick timeline too. I know some people take a lot longer. Obviously, it varies from like story to story, but for the small crew that you guys had, it's kind of amazing how fast you guys are kind of able to do that.
Oh,
Um, yeah, on a more personal note, what has this film, meant to you, especially now that you've put it out and people have been able to react to it?
it's meant so much, and a lot of it hasn't fully even made sense to me yet because there's still people that will comment on it or feel writing reviews on it. It's crazy. And so there's still so many thoughts to be shared about it. And yeah, like we're talking about it today. Like it's this is so cool. And it's meant so much. There was one person that comments on it and was like, I'm from Italy and I love this and it's been so inspiring, and it was this whole paragraph. And I was like, This is so wild." Because it's like something that I wrote on like a laptop in like my bedroom, and I thought it was like a good idea once, and somebody seeing it and is like, now I want to do this. And that's blows my mind. Um and so it's made me want to write a lot more. In the past 2 months, I've written so much more than I have like the entire last school year that I just went through. Just because there's something so like there's something really gratifying about being in a room of people watching it and somebody laughs or somebody gasps at something. Um, and so it's been really really cool because I've never had anything get this much of an outreach or this many comments or anything for sure. But yeah, so it's really made me want to just keep on trying to make something new. Um, and yeah, because there's nothing cooler than getting the compliment of seeing somebody or somebody coming up to me and being like, something specific in the film is something that I feel like I've experienced or I relate to so deeply, because it's literally like it's like some sort of weird communication. Like I wrote something down, made it, and then it goes to this other person and they're like, I know that feeling. And that's so weird because I didn't even need to speak to them, and they could be a complete stranger. And so that's a feeling that I just like might be one of my favorites about making a film in general, that I just want to keep on chasing down. But it's been so cool seeing the people that are really, really hyped about it or going back to it and sharing it and stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know again, I saw a bunch of comments, especially on YouTube, and I mean, yeah, like we were talking at the beginning of this interview, like a lot of people can relate to it in a sense, and I really appreciate about that about films is because, like you said, you can create something, put it out in the world, and then like literally minutes later, hours later, people will be like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm going through this too. Like I relate to
Yeah.
this too." So, love that. One last thing to kind of wrap up, at your young age, you made this incredible short film, and I know you're working on a lot more, projects and things like that. So, what would be one piece of advice you would give to someone maybe like around our age or younger who wants to kind of get into like filmmaking?
Hmm. That's really interesting. One piece of advice I feel like I would say is that um like one really cool thing that was able to make this film get to this might take me like a minute to like put into words, but
It's all
one
good.
one thing that kind of took like this film to the other level, I think, was me kind of being unknowing of what was really going on in like the in this industry. Like I had this film was like registered with SAG-AFTRA, and I had no idea going in. I knew it was something with the Actors Guild is all I knew, but I had no idea how to reach out, and I had to say that I was the producer and the stunt coordinator, and they were like, "You can't be both," and I was like, "We have no stunts. I'm sorry." Like I had no idea how to navigate any of this. Um, and yeah, there was like all the rentals of the spaces and paying actors for the first time. I'd never done any of this, but yeah, it's like somebody else asked me this question, or like not this question, but asked me like, was it helpful that I didn't know a lot of stuff? And I think that it actually was because now that I went through my first year of film school, like in college, and there's like totally this like understanding between everybody that you have your lane that you're in. Like for instance, I'm a film and television production major, emphasis in directing. So it's kind of this weird thing that I've noticed where everybody's like, it would be kind of odd if I like edited a project now or something because it's like, Angelo, you're at school to be a director and I'm in classes to be a director, but I love cinematography and everything. So one piece of advice I think is to if you see whatever it is that you're trying to make, like if you can hit play on it in your head, I wouldn't let any limits of what's expected of film or filmmaking to get in the way. Like for instance, there's all these people that I'm making films around now that are like, I need a producer, and they're like, I need a producer, and it's a no budget short. And I totally understand. Some people know exactly how to make that happen. But if you're filming something in like over a weekend, in like a month or something, I wouldn't let the expectations of what a perfectly run set overtake that. Meaning like I have to get a job for everybody, and I have to have like this set that's perfectly oiled and everything. Because there was so many days when it'd be me, the cinematographer, my friend, and our actor. It would just be us four running around Seattle. And so as long as you kind of have that spark for whatever it is, and you're like this close to making it happen, I wouldn't let it be like we need to make this feel like it's a film set rather than just trying to. I'm not trying to say just go for it because it's so like easy to say that. I just feel like what I've noticed in the past year is that there's so many expectations that it's like I'm a director and I don't even write. I love writing, but I feel like some people expect it to just be like I'm a director and I don't write things. I need to find a writer who's gonna find a producer for me, who's gonna find an editor, and then it gets so far from what I originally saw. Because like there's ways for that to work in the industry. There's ways for people to find their editor and find their person. But for as long as you haven't found that person yet, exactly, I would just try to do as much as you can because you can see it in your own eyes. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, of course. I think that's great advice because I feel like especially like in the film world, a lot of people don't start off where they end up going. Like a lot of people may
Yeah,
start with like, like lights or like lighting or anything like that, then they'll be on a film set and then they'll see all the different components that go into it and they'll be
yeah,
like, "Wait, I want to try this." And then they kind of work their way up to like what they actually enjoy. So, I think that's great advice and
yeah.
it's
That's a
been
great.
amazing. Yeah, it's been amazing talking to you, Angelo. I cannot wait to see what you do next. And I wish you all the best with your films. And also, again, props to you and your team for making this short film.
Well, thank you so much. It's been great talking to you as well.